Good evening, everybody. The Music Fan is back, bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. No, this is not a drill. Yes, I am clean shaven. There's a lot of things that have been going on recently, but yeah, I've been gone for a while for basically a reason. Other than the fact that, I've been super busy at work. I've been trying to get all the 2022 stuff done so I don't put it out again in December of the following year and just go through this same cycle over and over again, not ever putting out videos about new material. So was working on that, and then a very unfortunate thing happened. My bag with my laptop got stolen. So all the work that I have been doing on the 14 videos I was going to put out about 2022, all gone. I just have no energy to do this over again and push back more time and use up more energy and not get anything out for 2023. So we're going to do something a little bit different to kind of catch up while also still give you some of that 2022 content. Big thing, unfortunately, I'm only going to be talking about my favorite albums of 2022 when it comes to that material. No top 50 songs of the year, nothing about honorable mentions or honorable mentions. Unfortunately, that also means that you won't be seeing my brother's 10 favorite albums of 2022. I can at least list them off at some point if you guys are interested in that. But that whole video isn't happening either. Also, that means that me going over the 2022 aggregate list for album of the year, that's not going to happen. So a lot of albums are getting spared my ire. What I'm going to try to do instead, though, is put a little bit of my old material and new material together. So what's going to be happening on this channel for the foreseeable future is a bunch of album reviews from 2023. I've listened to over 50 albums so far this year, and I will definitely have more to talk about as we go along, but this is going to be the mainstay for this channel. Album reviews as current as I can, or at least from the last 6 months. I'm also going to be putting smaller versions of these album reviews on my Instagram, the Music Fan 77, if you want to check that out. 1 to 2 minute videos to give a little bit more of a digestible one if that's what you're looking for. This is going to be the more full-fledged out, track by track kind of review. However, I do want to give you something for also checking out these full videos. So what's going to happen is at the end of these videos, talk about one of my favorite 100 albums from last year. We're going to go from 100 all the way up to 1. So that means I'm going to make sure that I do 100 album reviews at least before the end of the year. Don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to make up for lost time, and I have a lot to talk about for some of these. So bear with me as this goes along. And of course, once I get through all 100 of them, I will make a list somewhere so you guys can see what my favorites were. So I hope it gives you a little bit more incentive to watch these full videos to hear my favorite albums from 2022. That being said, it's time to dust off an old fan favorite. Yes, this is Are You In? And today we're going to start off with the first album that I heard from 2023, and that is ID.Entity by Riverside. Now, this is the 8th album from Warsaw, Poland, progressive rock and metal band Riverside. Members include Mariusz Duda on lead vocals, bass, and acoustic guitar, Piotr Kosiarski on drums and percussion, Michael Lepage on keyboards and backing vocals, and Maciej Meller on guitars. Their previous albums include Out of Myself in 2003, Second Life Syndrome in 2005, Rapid Eye Movement in 2007, Anno Domini High Definition in 2009, Shrine of New Generation Slaves in 2013, Love, Fear, and the Time Machine in 2015, and Wasteland in 2018. You may remember a long time ago me talking about this particular band. I absolutely loved Wasteland, even though I was getting bombarded with ads in all the games that were playing at that point in time. Kind of annoying, but I'm glad that I checked them out. I loved what Wasteland brought to the table. It was somber, sweet. It did feel a little bit empty at times, but that was because they lost one of their long-time members in 2016. And this was an ode to his passing. Since then, I checked out a few more of their albums, particularly Love, Fear, and the Time Machine, which I really enjoyed, and Out of Myself, which is part of a trilogy. I really enjoyed Out of Myself, and I need to check out the rest of this band. There's a lot here that I tend to really like. More classical, progressive rock, more meat and potatoes rather than flashy stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In early January, they dropped this 8th album, ID.Entity. Identity, if you haven't played along yet. I was really hoping for something interesting, something to gravitate towards. Wasteland was a little bit softer at times, so there were a little bit of heavier parts, but I was looking to see what this band could come up with after the passing with a new batch of material, something a little bit harder, and of course with Identity having a little bit more of a social media and technology aspect. I thought there could have been a few interesting ideas on their way, a little bit more 80s kind of prog rock ideas. However, I've listened to this a few times, and I have to say, this album has definitely left me wanting more. There are some interesting parts to each song. There's nothing truly bad about most of these songs. Start off with one of the lead singles, Friend or Foe. Bunch of great choruses. This is probably one of the best choruses on the album. I love the chord progression here and the melody line and how it moves between that chord progression. Intro also builds very well. The problem here, though, is that a lot of this arrangement feels empty, and I would like to say that this is the only time that happens, but it's not. In particular for here, the bridges and outro feel a little bit slow because it doesn't feel like it built to anything. No sort of big crescendo. Even though there are some interesting parts, it feels more sometimes paint by numbers, as in like, hey, we have to put this here and this here to get to where we need to be, an equation, right, rather than a moving, flowing line. Same thing with a little bit of Landmine Blast. I love the opening guitar and bass riff. I like how they interplay with each other. The guitar is a little bit on the lower side, matching up with a higher bass line. The timing aspect here is also kind of cool, making for a kind of a unique sound on this album. However, once you get into the main guitar line, it feels very clunky. Even though they're trying to do something in an irregular time signature, it feels very clunky, and it sounds honestly even worse when they use this idea on the chorus line. I do really enjoy the subdued bridge, especially when it's building off of different layers, but again, there is no crescendo. Instead, it goes back to that main riff, and it just doesn't really work for me. It kind of makes me just go like, okay, this was a cool experience, but like I wish there was something more to it. Another issue that comes up on this album, and it shows up here and it shows up on the next song, Big Tech Brother, there's some very cheesy kind of use of automated computerized voice to make it feel like it's supposed to be this post-apocalyptic robot takeover and we're supposed to fear for our lives. But to me, it just kind of just comes off as a little bit cheesy for all the wrong reasons. Big Tech Brother starts off with one of those cheesy voices. And if you push away that, there are some solid parts on here. The saxophone here is solid. I like the touch on here. It does sound a little bit computerized, but still, it's a nice solid touch to create something kind of a little bit different on this album. The bridge on here is also one of the better ones on the album, but it's a shame because this idea kind of just fades out really quickly. The chorus is solid, but again, there's not really much vocally that's really drawing me into the song. Next on the album is a Post-Truth. One of the better built arrangements, and I do like the piano outro on here, though it feels a little bit padded on to the rest of the arrangement, as if it was like, oh, hey, we need to put this coda on here at the end. It has a memorable melody, in my opinion, even if I'm not a huge fan of the synths on here, but it's still, again, a good, not great song. And then the last three songs, this is where the album kind of takes a turn, in my opinion. Two of the last three songs are about, if I remember correctly, 20-ish minutes long together, and both of them are talking about similar ideas. Most of this album is talking about bringing your own identity in a world where things feel like they're becoming more polarized and more calculated towards what you want to hear rather than what you need to hear, especially with the idea of social media and advertising and feeling like we're losing our sense of purpose and our sense of identity, especially, in this political landscape and in this particular time, also with chat GPT and everything. Not bad themes, but I don't find the writing to be super unique to this story. Especially where we've had so many metal albums, progressive albums going down this road, and also just like mainstream music in general going down this road at this point in terms of topics. I don't find anything unique when it comes to this, and it kind of shows on The Place Where I Belong. For a progressive rock ballad, it just goes on way too long. It goes through a bunch of musical ideas that for the most part aren't super interesting until you get to the instrumental part at the end. For the most part, the lyrics are about the polarization about the right and the left, and making fun of like New Age philosophers and people who are doing meditation and yoga and stuff like that to better themselves. All these crazes that are happening because they already happened before. Again, not a bad topic, but just one that this band doesn't really give much more light to, which is the ironic part, right? It's a topic about this has all been done before. It feels like it's already been done before. And then Self-Aware as a closer. There are some sweet moments to this song, and especially on the chorus melodies. But for me, with it being 9 minutes long, it doesn't feel like it should have. There's like the last 3 minutes are all instrumental, and it felt like at that 6-minute part, everything had been said and done. It's not a bad outro, it just doesn't feel like it's needed. There is one more solid song with some of the best vocals on this album. One of the other singles, I'm Done With You. Love the stronger parts on this chorus, especially the Fire Away part. The arrangement is good. Again, it doesn't ring any bells or whistles, but it has a really solid tone, and this is the strongest vocals on the album, just like the darkest material. I wish there was more of this particular song on the album. It feels like whenever there's an interesting idea on the album, it stays only briefly, as most of the more interesting songs to me are like the 3 to 4 to 5 minute songs. All the longer songs in this album, other than Friend or Foe, which does have some good parts, they stay too long, and there isn't enough there to garner the attention it is trying to give. And it's such an unfortunate thing for me. I've heard so many other people say that they really enjoyed this album, but for me, this just felt a little bit too paint by numbers without the flow. And it's not like this band can't do this. I heard it all over Wasteland. I heard the building, the decrescendos, the crescendos, the layering of parts. Take, for example, Wasteland, the song itself. One of my favorite songs by them. There are so many intricate parts that flow in and out on each other. The vocals start very low in Marius's range and eventually build up again as the rest of this song builds. That's just one prime example. The Struggle of Survival also does this. Yes, it does feel sometimes empty, but it's also because they were missing somebody. And in a weird way, some of these arrangements just feel empty, even though they have a fuller band now. So for me, it just missed the mark. I'm not saying that it's a bad album by any means. There are still some like fun things, some interesting ideas, but on the whole, it just isn't super memorable, and it's not an album of theirs I'm going to go back to. So for me, this is a pick and choose, and it borders on a full listen. It's harder for me to say like a pick and choose just because it is only 7 tracks, but I would say Friend or Foe, Post-Truth, I'm Done With You. I would say those are the 3 to definitely take a look at if you're going to. You could definitely do a full listen. However, it is a 50-minute album for 7 tracks. So I don't think the payoff is worth it for a full listen. If you just listen to the 3 I said, that's probably about 20 minutes, and it's some pretty solid prog. We'll see how the next one is, but for me, it just missed the mark this time. Thank you for checking out this review, but we got one more thing to take care of before we call it quits with this video. that is to start off my top 100 albums of 2022. Now, there are a few choices that could have made the cut. I would say number 101 for me was Alexis on Fire with Otherness. That was an awesome comeback album. Cody and Cambria was also in that mix, as well as a few others. I listened to over 400 albums from last year, so it was very tough for me to let go some of these albums to not make my top 100. That's just the way it is. And what you're going to see is that 2022 was a hell of a year. There's a lot of people in the bottom half of this list that are big names and have a lot of people saying that they were like the best album of the year by far. For me, just so much music that I listen to that it just so happens to be this way. But trust me, there's going to be a lot of really good albums on here. So let's start off with the true number 100. And that is Sunsleeper with While You Can. When all said and done, I couldn't leave this album off the list. There's just so many beautifully gorgeous and warm songs on this album. Even though there's a lot of emo-ness, a lot of sad content on here, you kind of just get wrapped up in these arrangements. Starting off with Porch Light, the guitar on here is so warm, bright, and vibrant. Just sets such a peaceful and serene tone. They do that throughout most of the album. I love the harmonies on Porch Light. Also, the lead singer on here has a really solid voice that matches the tone of what they're trying to bring out there. There are some harder moments on this album, particularly Way Out. I absolutely adore as a powerhouse song, and it's a slow burn one as well. But there's a lot of parts on here that you fall into these arrangements. Porch Light, In the Clouds, Blemishes, Stay Home is a great quartet of songs to begin this album. Anywhere is a beautiful ballad of finger-picked guitar, super simple, yet the lyrics are effective. Quitter, I love the parts where this guy is trying to compare himself to like probably Stevie Wonder in terms of a singer, or if he wrote like Phoebe. I also love the change of the minor to major on the chord progression in the chorus. The album doesn't end the best, I would say Way Out and Thief are solid, but Feel It While You Can and Currents don't really do much for me, and that's probably why it's ranked a little bit lower. But make no mistake, even though it's number 100, it's still a hell of a listen. One of the better, just pure rock albums from last year. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching this first of what should be 100 album reviews, if not more. Let's get back into this. I have been missing this for so long, and I have so much to talk about, and I hope that you are here to watch and listen. So a few things that you can do in the meantime as you're waiting for the next one of these. First off, if you like what I said here, give my video a like. Second, let me know other albums from 2023 that I should listen to. I have plenty more to get to and a half a year to get to it. But trust me, I will take any sort of recommendations. 3, share this with your friends if you think that they would like this. And number 4, let me know what you think about this particular album. And then finally, the last thing that you can do is, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. That way I know that you enjoy what I'm doing and want to see more videos like this in the future. So I'll be back with another album review shortly. Until then, this is Music Fan, and I'm signing off.